her hair still done up in an elaborate braided coiffure, one of her magnificently ridiculous hats on the cushion beside her, and her dress looking straight from the highest of haute couture boutiques in Paris, despite having come from their own attic. She was setting tongues ablaze, he knew, daring to wear fashionable ensembles when she was in a delicate condition. 3 more months, by the doctor's estimation, before she presented him with his first niece, or nephew. He alternated between unbridled joy and unfettered panic at the thought. Everything was going to change. Everything already had. No trapeze acts, no acrobatics that required 2 people in their investigations. What was worse, she looked so blasted tired, and her face was pale beneath her smile. Marigold quirked a brow at him. "Are you still pouting about staying in London?" "Of course I am." It was his sworn duty as her pesky little brother, after all, to complain to her. "It's hot as blazes." She chuckled. But even that sounded tired. "So come with us." If only he could. Were it only the sessions, he might well choose to duck out of them. There was nothing really urgent up for vote. Not that his vote mattered on, anyway. But if tonight's early evening appointment resulted in a case, he'd have to be here to investigate it. Rarely did their cases allow for working from their own home county. The last one that did had been anything but pleasant. Which reminded him to send a smile to Lavinia. "Hello, Vin." Only when he glanced at her did he realize that she'd been looking at him ever since he barged in, an amused expression on her face. "Yates?" Lady Lavinia Hemming was, without question, beautiful. And he could admit, to his sister anyway, that he'd been in love with her for most of his life. But that was before he realized his father had left him not so much as a shilling with which to run the estate. Before they'd had to let most of their servants go and, gasp, learn to cook their own food and take on work to make ends meet. He'd known, as he sat in the solicitor's office beside Marigold, and heard there was nothing left of the Fairfax fortune, that Lavinia was never going to be his wife. Then she had caught scarlet fever, nearly died, and been all but bedridden for years from the ensuing heart condition. Her parents hadn't been exactly keen on letting a young man into their daughter's bedroom either, so he'd scarcely seen her for years. And he'd had to focus on earning his family enough income to survive on. 6 years later, he'd learned to look at her without that punch to his gut. Which was good, since she'd been courted by no fewer than a half-dozen leading gentlemen once she finally came out last year after her recovery. Most of them this summer, when she returned to London after the first few horrible months of grief, from learning her mother was a traitor, and then mourning her death. There were those momentary twinges of jealousy as he watched her dance with other gentlemen, but that was natural, to be expected. And he shrugged them off after only a second, proving what he'd been saying to his sister for years now. He was over his infatuation. Lavinia didn't appear to be exactly glowing after her societal success, though. If anything, she looked as weary as Marigold, and without the handy excuse. He frowned at her. "You look like a stout wind could blow you over. Have you been sleeping?" Lavinia rolled her green eyes. "Yes, father." "Eating?" "Yes." "Exercising?" At that she let out a huff. "My physicians have cautioned me not to overexert myself. You know that." "Over, yes. But a bit of exertion is necessary for regaining one's strength." The look she directed to his arms wasn't exactly admiring. "I suppose you think yourself the expert, Mr. Strong Man." His lips twitched upward. "That's Lord Strongman to you. And I'll have you know that after my devastating wound, which I took saving your life—" "You did not!" It got her laughing, anyway. If they could laugh about it now, that surely meant her heart was recovering from the blow her mother had dealt it. "I saved you!" He waved away that little detail. "While recuperating, I definitely found it of the utmost importance to push myself a little more each day, to truly recover." Lavinia rolled her eyes again. It was barely a scratch. "I took a dagger to the leg. 8 stitches. But he grinned and flopped down beside her on her sofa.